While Greek philosophy began earlier, it's only with Plato that we first have longer continuous texts, with the works of the so-called pre-Socratic thinkers being fragmentary. Plato's writings can be said to be central to the emergence of the field of philosophy in the Western tradition. They also contain discussions of material relevant for other fields, such as science, mathematics, religion, psychology, literature, political theory, and art criticism. The doctrines contained in them had a great influence and formed the basis of many later schools of philosophy. Plato's writings portray the thought and activity of his beloved teacher Socrates. Although he himself never wrote anything, Socrates had a profound impact on his pupils. He would go around Athens and ask people about their beliefs, and then, with his own special method of cross-examination called the elenchus, would refute them. Thus, following Socrates' method of questioning, Plato wrote in dialogues in which he portrays Socrates as the intellectual hero in conversation with others. There are similar Socratic dialogues by other students of Socrates, not all of which survive. The most famous of these are those by Xenophon, but they lack the style and power of those of Plato and have had considerably less importance in the history of reception. It's been a matter of endless discussion how much the dialogues can be regarded as reflecting actual discussions that really took place and how much is pure fiction. The correct answer clearly lies somewhere in the middle between these two extremes, but there will presumably always be some disagreement about the precise percentages of historical truth and creative writing. It's also been debated what ideas or elements in the Platonic dialogues can rightly be ascribed to Socrates and which ones come from Plato himself. There does seem to be important differences of focus and emphasis in the Platonic dialogues, which clearly suggests some kind of development of thought. Scholars such as the German theologian and philosopher Schleiermacher have long attempted to establish the precise chronology of the dialogues, using designations such as early, middle, and late dialogues to refer to specific periods. But today, there's no clear-cut consensus on this matter. Socrates is thought to have been born in 470 or 469 BC. His father was a sculptor, and the young Socrates is said to have worked as a stonemason. His knowledge of the arts and crafts is clearly in evidence in the dialogues. But Socrates also received a literary education from an early age, and in the dialogues he regularly demonstrates his familiarity with the Greek poets. As we learn in the Apology, Socrates served as an Athenian soldier in the Peloponnesian War and was present at some of its most famous battles. Socrates was married, but seems to have neglected his family life for the sake of his philosophical pursuits. His wife, Xanthippe, has probably unfairly become proverbial as a carping, short-tempered woman. Socrates also had 3 young sons at the time of his death. As is portrayed in the Apology, in 399 BC, at the age of 70, he was brought up on charges by his fellow Athenians and ultimately sentenced to death. After a short imprisonment, he was obliged to drink hemlock and, as is portrayed in the Phaedo, died after his last philosophical discussion with his students. After the death of Socrates, Plato founded a school on the outskirts of Athens known as the Academy. Later in life, he went to the city-state Syracuse in order to try to implement his political views there. But in time, he fell into disfavor with the despot Dionysius I and returned to Athens. The thought of Socrates and Plato has had an enormous influence on the Western tradition. In the ancient world, their ideas were influential in the development of the Hellenistic schools of, among others, Stoicism, skepticism, and cynicism. The figure of Socrates became an important source of inspiration in the modern period for thinkers such as Hamann, Hegel, Schleiermacher, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, and Gadamer. The most important modern edition of Plato's writings was that published in 3 volumes in Geneva in 1578 by Henri Estienne. This is known generally simply as the Stefanos Edition, since Stefanos is the Latinized name of Estienne. This edition established the practice of paginating Plato's writings by means of not just numbers, but also the letters A through E. Most all modern editions and translations follow the pagination of the Stefanos Edition.